welcome to another edition of Click Happens. My name is Doug Kreitzberg, founder of SeedPod Cyber. I'm here, as usual, with my two intrepid colleagues, and that includes Sinclair Morris. Sinclair is our MSP partner manager, and Kyle Soddy, our CRO and EVP of underwriting. Sinclair, Kyle, how you guys doing?
Good, thanks, Doug.
Good, yeah.
And Sinclair, what's the temperature where you are?
It's warm again. It's in the 80s.
Ugh, I hate that.
Sinclair just started her gardening, and my garden is dead. I just started.
Really? Yeah.
Oh, really? Do you do like vegetables, Sinclair, or are you flowers, or all in for everything?
A little bit of both. I have a native garden for butterflies, but I am growing some veggies. I actually have my first green pepper, and it's looking pretty good.
The first green pepper. Okay. All right. Good. Green peppers. So you'll have a nice. What will it be? A salad? Or are you going to do? Put it in a red sauce?
Who knows? Any of those would be great options.
There you go. Okay. All right. Good. Well, we'll have fun battling through Stop and Shop. Trying to find the fresh green peppers from Florida. But in any event, we have some very interesting topics to talk about. I guess today we had another cloud flare from Cloudflare, and that system was down. Cloudflare manages the DNS of many organizations. I think we actually have a few of our IP addresses running through Cloudflare. But Sinclair, Kyle, any reactions? Kyle, you had a major issue, right, in the Soddy family?
I had a 911 text from my father who always reaches out if these things happen. He's like, "Is there something happening today?" And I'm like, "Yeah, here's the article." He actually, though, it was interesting. He couldn't get onto his banking, which I found interesting. I did hear, so Sinclair, also shared this morning as well. But before that, I'd heard on Sports Talk, because I think there's like some of the news, they're just constantly putting stuff on like Twitter or X, and they couldn't do that. So that's where I first heard about it. But yeah, some banking issues in the Soddy family.
So, but you came to the rescue. Did he ask you for a few bucks?
I wouldn't say a rescue. I just sent him an article and said good luck. So I said, well, I have knowledge in this space. I actually have no power. So
right.
I can tell you there's something wrong. So yeah, sure.
And Sinclair, what about you? Was this a disaster in the Morris household?
It wasn't a disaster, and I think only because I think that it seems they have most of it back up now from what I've seen. But I did actually call to make a payment to a local healthcare nonprofit, and they were like, "It's due tomorrow, the payment is." And she said that she couldn't complete it, so I'd have to call back because their systems were down because of the Cloudflare. So hopefully that gets submitted and I don't have any penalties for not paying.
That's right. Yeah, and so that could be in issues. And people were having problems getting into, I guess, Chat GPT, or I know I had an issue getting into Claude.
Spotify.
There.
No music.
Spotify. Oh my gosh, Spotify. Again, we seem to have this conversation every week. It's almost, AWS, Microsoft, Cloudflare now. I think these things are just part of our connected times here. Sometimes, when you put together when you do a risk analysis, a cybersecurity risk analysis, you the formal process is to really identify all the risks that could occur, and all the threats that could occur, and what's the likelihood of it, and what's the impact, and then at the end of the day, you have to choose whether you want to mitigate that risk, or accept the risk, and sometimes it's okay to say, I accept this risk. And, for organizations right now wondering, well, what do I do? Should I come up with mechanisms to continue to work if Cloudflare doesn't exist for a period of time? Some of us may just, have to be okay with saying, I'm going to accept that risk is out there, right? And we'll get, get through it. So you have to kind of balance everything when you're thinking about risk, as to really the cost of trying to address it versus just being namaste about it here. So with that, but good thing is Cloudflare is back up and running, so life is good again, and the Saudi family can be at peace there. But ransomware isn't sleeping. Ransomware is still very much alive, and Kyle, kind of what's the story there that's coming out?
Yeah, well, like you said, ransomware is very, very much alive. I was thinking about Doug yesterday. Doug and I were catching up with one of our carrier partners, and they were talking about how the weekend, I think there were 4 or 5 new ransomware claims they were dealing with. But I think there's a bigger conversation happening right now, and specifically the conversation right now is in the UK. And the question is whether the UK is going to ban extortion payments for effectively public entities and I think some infrastructure. That's a conversation that's occurred and continues to occur in the US as well. And it goes back to this kind of overarching theme of, should extortion payments be allowed? Should they be covered under insurance? Should they be allowed by clients? And there's, on one end, you have a group of people, saying, well, if we didn't pay extortions, then all of this would stop. And on the other end, it's like, no, that's not true. I think it's interesting. I think when extortions aren't paid, I think the loss just kind of moves into a different area. So let's kind of go through a scenario where you have a client that's going through a ransomware attack, and they're either able not to access their data, or it's already out there, right? It's taken. And in that circumstance, they make a decision whether they're going to pay the extortion or not. And again, insurance can cover that. If they don't pay it, then you can see where the costs kind of go. It probably goes to more things like business interruption or data recovery. And so if that extortion was 500 grand, that's probably, could be more, going towards another end. And I don't think threat actors are necessarily going to slow down because of that. But it's tough. I unfortunately, or fortunately, I don't know what you want to call it, but over the years, I've spoken with plenty of clients who have gone through this. They all say it's the worst business day of their life, professional day. And at the end of the day, if a business can't operate and they need to pay an extortion, well, I get that. And I understand that. So that conversation will continue. There was one other note I want to say, which I just saw this morning, but there was a company in the US that decided not to pay an extortion, and they took that money and they donated it to a charity. And right. We always say we like to get PR firms involved if the client's big enough and they need to deal with that. That was the best concept I've ever heard of, if you're publicly having to admit you've had a data breach or a ransomware attack, because obviously it's a black eye and that. But yeah, to take that money and to give it to a charity, I thought that was pretty cool. So,
and a charity toward research to prevent similar incidents.
Sinclair, what was it again? Not the name, but like, it was, like you said, it was research to...
It was something having to do with cybersecurity and cool. Preventing ransomware. But yeah, I agree. Very interesting pivot. Yeah,
that is great. That's a good way to do it. Sinclair, what do you think about ransomware? Should it be covered? Should the governments prevent businesses from paying ransomware?
I don't know. That's such a hard question. And I think it's, it depends on so many different factors. I don't think there's a clear cut yes or no. I mean, certainly over the years, I've heard of stories where businesses have made the decision to pay a ransom, which also isn't taken lightly. Even if you have the coverage, the carriers are doing their diligence, they're getting a negotiator involved. So there's a lot going on. It's not just, yeah, we want to pay it, we want to get access. But beyond that, they make the payment and they still don't get full access to all of their data and their networks or whatever it might be. So it's a hard question.
Right. Yeah, I think to Kyle's point, if you're a business and you have no choice, the backups aren't working, or they're nowadays they're threatening to expose they've taken records in addition to encrypting, and they're threatening to expose those records, which could cause harm to your clients. Sometimes you have to make a business decision there to do it, similar to if it was, a kidnapping situation. You've got to make those decisions there. And as I think you bring up an interesting point, Kyle. If the costs aren't going to be there, then you're probably still going to have costs in terms of extra expense. And it could be an existential issue, and you may have to go out of business and let a lot of people go, right? And that certainly has happened there. So I'm not sure. And so the UK, they weren't saying every business is prevented from doing this. It's public entities. Is that correct?
Yeah, public entities and critical infrastructure. And there's a couple other things. Like I want to say it's France. I don't think France lets insurance companies pay extortion demands, but the U.S. has gone about it a little different way, a little less political. So there's OFAC sanctions lists, and they'll occasionally put a team like a threat acting group on that list, which means nobody, the client or insurance company, can pay an extortion for those. I want to say like Scattered Spider was on there. Now we've seen like they'll just shut down and then like start parading their new name, like
right.
Scattered Elephants or something, whatever. But they'll try and do workarounds. But there's firms that are really ingrained that actually have relationships with these groups that they can kind of say like, yeah, this is a Scattered Spider group. We can't, you guys can't pay them. So it's like another piece. It's really tough. And imagine making this decision and going through all of this when the house is on fire, when you're dealing with this. It's a big, stressful issue. So yeah, it's a tough topic.
Right. And I find it curious that the UK is focused on the critical infrastructure and public entities, other than, presumably they're part of government, so they should, fall under some oversight. But you would almost want to make sure that the power can stay on, right? That the water can run, that that health and human services can do what they need to do, and what happens if that's the only way for them to do that is to pay a ransom there.
My gut tells me there's two thoughts on it. One is that they don't want the view that taxpayers' money is going and paying an extortion. So there could be that political element. Yep. And two, I would hope that if it's like a power grid or something like that, you're probably getting the national cybersecurity, like the equivalent of the FBI or something, or NAS, involved in that, who will probably be able to turn the tide. Whereas, most businesses would never get those resources. So that's what my gut tells me, what they're thinking, and what they would provide in that situation. But again, that wouldn't be available to most businesses.
Right. And it may also be coming off of the heels of the Jaguar attack. There was I guess it was a ransomware attack against Jaguar, and Jaguar was down. They did not have insurance. They were actually negotiating to buy insurance, cyber insurance, but they didn't have it. And it wasn't an issue so much of Jaguar and it's the impact to Jaguar as it was to all the subcontractors. And there was some talk of, almost a bailout of, in some respects, all the entities, the parties that were affected by this. That caused some concerns, politically. Do you really bail out entities that aren't doing good security there, or not? And I'm wondering if those discussions kind of prompted this new bill on the UK side as well. There.
That's a good connection. That could make sense. I also think, I don't know if we were talking on the last podcast, I saw an article of UK insurers paying out like 250 million in cyber losses. It just seems like there's getting a lot of awareness in this in the UK government.
Yeah, absolutely. Marks and Spencer was another one recently there. Fortunately, the ransomware doesn't happen anymore in the United States, so we're all good from that standpoint. But another thing that's occurred, I guess last month during Cybersecurity Awareness Month was that Windows 10, good old Windows 10, we hardly knew ye, is no more. Microsoft is not going to update Windows 10. They have the new Windows 11 operating system, I guess, and which if you get that, you may also have to upgrade your hardware. But what that means is for anyone who's on Windows 10, if you won't get those patch updates unless you subscribe to a special service that allows you to get those updates. And so the bad guys really love to go after what they call end-of-life software, which now Windows 10 would be defined as, because once they find a vulnerability, they know that in this case, Microsoft isn't going to try to fix it. And they also know that businesses are typically slow to kind of move to the next, upgrade, so to speak, to the next version. So they can view this as an opportunity here. I guess, and this has an impact. Obviously, we work with MSPs. MSPs have been trying to get the clients to move over to Windows 11. Sinclair, what are you hearing from the MSPs who are doing this? Are they finding that clients are pretty much willing to kind of move forward and do what needs to be done, or are there a lot that it's pulling teeth to get them there?
Yeah, I'm sure there's a good portion of the clients that I don't hear about that did it with no problem and it was easy for them. But especially when it comes to having to update or upgrade the hardware, that becomes quite an undertaking, and
yeah,
a lot of businesses don't want to do it. Luckily, the ESU that you mentioned, the extended support, does help buy some time, but only so much. Eventually, it is something that you're either going to just have to bite the bullet and do it, or, like you mentioned, not a great option, but change to a different provider or solution. So
right, yeah. So we have a little bit of foot dragging there, which I I get, to a certain extent, certainly. And Kyle, so I'm a foot dragging business. I didn't, I'm still on Windows 10. It's still working. I don't have any issues. What if, bad guys get in and they're able to compromise something because I'm on Windows 10? Will my cyber carrier, throw me to the curb and drag its feet over paying a claim, or am I covered?
Hopefully not right away. No, I mean, generally, for like a policy in force, there isn't going to be an exclusion for not upgrading. Now, Sinclair was mentioning like end of life EOL. That is a pretty traditional underwriting question. And that might either come up on like a new business submission or renewal. And carriers want to know what clients are doing with end of life. And usually it's you continue paying for additional support. Maybe sometimes I've seen this on the manufacturing side where they'll have like an older system connected to an OT that has no access to the internet. And that will be like, okay, that's okay as long as you don't connect it to the internet. But it is cyber hygiene. It's funny in my in the past experience of underwriting, clients that maybe aren't willing to upgrade in a situation like this. And granted, I understand that it costs money. There usually is probably other things going on too, maybe some other deficiencies in certain cybersecurity protections. But I think most people understand the importance of it. At least I hope.
Right. I mean, part of it is it's certainly a budget issue and how to manage it. And if you do have a large, and hopefully the cost, I don't know how much it costs to get the security update, but hopefully that's not too onerous there. And now, Sinclair, if we think about the risk to the MSP of having clients that haven't gone to the Windows 11, there's a potential risk there, right? There's a few. There's, maybe the bad guys could exploit Windows 10 and one of their clients and somehow get upstream into the MSP and I'm not going to pretend to know how all that could happen, but one could conceive of it, right? And then there's also the chance that the bad guys get into a client through Windows 10, and the client has amnesia as to the time that the MSP actually sat down and said, "Hey, I want to review with you the need to go to Windows 11," and they say, "Well, you never told me that. It's on you, Mr. or Ms. MSP." So what should MSPs do? How do they handle clients who won't, either go to Windows 11 or even do the security update?
Yeah, I mean, certainly I would think just out of an abundance of caution, documenting that conversation was had, the risks have been discussed, and the client has, acknowledged that there is vulnerability in not doing so. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. So, similar to, which hopefully MSPs are doing for clients who decide they're not going to do MFA, right? Or, they'll do MFA for everybody but the boss. There's got to be some acknowledgement that that's been communicated and the risks have been communicated, and the client has decided to accept that risk, similar to what we talked about with Cloudflare, right? And it's just a good practice, I think, for the MSPs to make sure they're documented. It just removes, a point of possible contention down the road, and there's no reason for that here. So I do think that makes a lot of sense. And Kyle, just to kind of make sure that folks understood what you were saying is, if you're coming around to a cyber renewal, you may be covered today, or it sounds like you would be covered today if I have cyber insurance and yesterday Windows 10 was good. Today it's no longer good. I get hacked today. The carrier is still going to cover me, absent anything else, right? There.
Yeah.
And but at renewal, when my policy does come up for renewal, I may need to acknowledge that I have end of life in my environment, and that's something I just want to make sure that if that is the case, that I note that. So,
Yeah.
right, is that basically?
Yeah, I recall a very long time ago in the market seeing like a EOL, end of life exclusion on like one or two carriers, and that was, they got rid of that because, as you know, there's so many different technologies people have. They're updating all the time. It's impossible, and that's not what the insurance product is looking to do, right? I mean, cyber insurance is there to cover what should be a covered claim. So, but then it's good at the time period, which is usually once a year, to re-underwrite and make sure that the controls are in place and they're doing the right thing. So yeah, like you said, would and should be covered during the policy period, but you might have to answer to that come a renewal cycle or placing the coverage if you have end of life.
Right. As we go forward here, so it's been interesting. We've talked about cloud outages. We've talked about ransomware, end of life, and a lot of incidents, and yet, the carriers, the brokers are still seeing, cyber insurance rates not increasing, certainly. Still some decreases out there in the marketplace. What are we thinking? If we had to counsel businesses for next year, this is budget season now. Should they be budgeting for increases, budgeting for decreases in their cyber, keeping it flat? What would you recommend, Kyle?
You're talking about bringing out the crystal ball.
Yeah, right. Exactly.
And telling us exactly, because we know what's going to happen, right? No, there was another article. I forget the company that put out that they were expecting rates to increase by 15%. Now, I would love to see the data where they pulled that and why they think that. Usually when you hear a report like that, it's coming from data from reinsurers. And just in case you don't know what a reinsurer is, if you're listening in, reinsurers, it's basically they provide insurance for insurance. So companies that provide like cyber insurance on the front end, like a Hanover, they'll have reinsurance on the back end to help take like big losses so they can continue to operate. And reinsurers usually drive the conversations each year of if there'll be rate needs. So I'm curious if that came from, all we keep hearing is claims are up. There's a lot of claims being paid and that sort of thing. I'm curious if that came from reinsurance conversations. But I think there's a need for rate to go up after 3 or 4 years of the rate going down and knowing that claims are going up. I think nobody wants to go back to what happened in kind of 19 or 20, which in that time period rates skyrocketed because the policy premiums before that time couldn't cover the loss for ransomware, and ransomware was really weaponized in like 1920. I think the whole market wants stability, which means you can go a little bit up, you can go a little bit down, but nobody wants like up, down, like big drops in that. So with all that said, I would be surprised going into January if we see rates go up. There is a lot of competition out there and a lot of interest, but I do think there needs to be kind of a flatlining of pricing.
Right.
Which means it's a good time still to buy increased coverage, which we've seen that over the last two or 3 years. If there's a premium savings, if you can increase your limit and just do that, that's great. That's a smart move.
Yeah, absolutely. To go from $1 million to 2 million or 2 million to 5 million, it's not a huge lift, and it gives you as a business that much more protection here. and from the Sinclair, from the MSP's perspective, and they may not, they're not seeing kind of the pricing on the cyber insurance. Are they seeing though that businesses are more willing to buy the security services necessary to protect themselves?
Are you saying in place of the insurance?
Not in
or-
place. Well, I guess there's two questions. One is, are they, is the conversation around improving cybersecurity becoming easier for MSPs, or is it tough as it always was? And are the MSPs hearing more from their clients these days about buying cyber insurance, or really trying to understand, if they have it, what it is?
Yeah. So for the first question, certainly, I think so. I may be slightly biased because at SeedPod we have really good tools that kind of help in positioning the importance and encouraging good hygiene. So maybe I'm biased, but I feel like the conversations have been a bit easier. I think just security in general is becoming more top of mind. I mean, literally in the last month, every single podcast episode we've done, we've talked about an operating system that has had something happen. So I think it's just becoming more visible to business owners that the threat is real and the services they're paying for are valuable. They are protecting them.
Right.
And then as it pertains to cyber insurance, yeah, I definitely think so. Like we've spoken about on a few occasions, those contractual obligations just seem to be more common. I mean, and can't blame them. Third parties are becoming a frequent point of entry for incidents. So if you want to work with people, they want you to have cyber coverage. It's that simple.
Right. Yeah. There. And just getting back to what Kyle just talked about, it's not that it's not that expensive to get today. It's certainly worthwhile. Make sure you have the right security in place, and make sure that when you do, when you are thinking about cyber insurance, you're talking to someone who's kind of focused in that, because often your insurance broker who handles your other coverage may not have that expertise there. But with that, we have next week is Thanksgiving here. Are either of you traveling over the holidays? Are you sticking close to home?
Sinclair?
I'm staying home.
You gotta take care of that garden. You gotta take care of that garden. So
yeah, you got the garden. You got a weed during Thanksgiving.
Yeah.
There. What about you? What about you, Kyle?
I'm fairly local for Thanksgiving. I go back. I'm from a town called Lancaster, PA, so it's like an hour away. We go back and celebrate with family, and then over the week, I'm really excited. I'm taking my oldest child for his birthday to a football game, the first time he's going. So,
oh wow,
excited about that. Yeah,
that's nice. That's like a pro football game.
Eagles, that Friday 3 p.m. game. So,
oh, awesome. That's great. That's great. Well, good. Well, we'll obviously be talking to each other between now and then. But for those of you, again, thanks for tuning in, and wishing you the best of these holidays. And obviously, have to say it, stay safe, and don't click on any links.